Welcome back, USAG coaches. This is Christopher Weiler, President of Fitness Fusion. In the interest of greater learning and efficiency, I've narrated the PowerPoint presentation as you are experiencing right now. Additionally, I've combined the two presentations, How to Build Powerful Athletes and What's the Best Exercise For, into this single presentation. Don't worry, no one will miss out on anything. In fact, those who attended How to Build Powerful Athletes will actually receive more than they received at Congress, as the next presentation, What's the Best Exercise For, advanced into the next phase of the C.A.T.S model. The thing has no power. This phrase is number one on your guiding principles page because it is the single most important and fundamentally crucial element in proper physical development. If you filter your training program, exercise choices, and all athletic development information that you receive from any source through this axiom, the thing has no power, then you will always understand what is credible, what is not, and how to properly integrate it or pieces of it in guiding the development of your athletes. Most of you will recognize this as the Staples Easy button. Slap that button and all your office supply needs are automatically met. Unfortunately for the development of our youth, we are a society conditioned to believe in this automatic, easy process regarding exercise and equipment. I can find hundreds of references for the squat being the king of the lifts. I can find just as many that claim the deadlift is the king, or that the clean and the jerk, or the snatch, etc. Some say machines, some say body weight, some say free weights. For every conditioning goal, there is a dedicated group of exercises, associated equipment, and believers that put their faith in those exercises, granting the user with stability, coordination, flexibility, strength, power, speed, etc. This is what is meant by the thing has no power. That squat cannot give you stability, coordination, flexibility, strength, power, speed, etc. until it is qualified by its application and execution. How you perform the exercise and how you apply that piece of equipment determines what you are training for. We'll get into execution later. So, the most important point is how you think about training the body. If you give power to the exercises and equipment, then you will find yourselves in an endless cycle of searching and trying the latest exercise flavors of the moment to see what happens. Yet you will still not have any real plan, system, or context by which to mold and apply those exercises to the unique needs of each athlete during their stages of development. Think of it this way. You could get the best paints, brushes, and canvas, but their use does not automatically make you an artist. How you apply those tools determines the quality and specificity of the outcome. Another great example is recent news regarding Shawn Johnson, who just won the all-around at the World Championships in Germany. Many coaches believe the power is in how many hours their athletes train. More is better, right? Wrong. Shawn's training is limited to 25 hours per week, again reinforcing that there is nothing magical about the amount of time an athlete trains, but rather what happens during that training in context of the unique characteristics of that athlete. One size does not fit all. For those of you who are still struggling with this concept, I'll explain it this way. In the sport of gymnastics, the United States, China, Russia, and Romania are all serious contenders at any international competition. Yet, they all utilize very different training styles, strategies, programs, and philosophies. Their lifestyles, relationships, and cultures are also quite different from one another. So how do you explain each of them consistently producing medal winners? If they all train differently, yet they all have the capacity to win, then it must not be nearly as important what they are doing, but how they are doing it. Or, put another way, oh yeah, I'm going to say it again, the thing has no power. Do you get it now? This presentation is included in that. I could have just put up the PowerPoint presentation, which would have provided you with a bunch of ideas, suggestions, and things to read and do. but that gives the power to, well, the PowerPoint. Instead, I qualified it by adding narration to give you a context by which to understand how to use and apply the tools contained within this program. Although the focus here is on athletic development, the reality is that the majority of the athletes you train will not go on to gymnastics greatness at the national or world level. Therefore, we have a responsibility to create the causes for healthy bodies for life. Coaches teach skills training. Specifically, gymnastics coaches teach fundamentals, shapes, positions, rules, strategies, etc. The tools that most coaches have at their disposal are verbal guidance and physical repositioning. Squeeze harder, point your toes, open your shoulders, stop sticking your butt out, hollow, tuck, stop twisting. Sound familiar? And the list goes on and on. The other tool is physically moving the athlete's body into the correct position. Typically, the athlete's body snaps back like a rubber band into the improper position. The reason being is that these tools are not adequate to address the physical restrictions preventing the athlete from correctly performing the skills the coach is teaching. The C.A.T.S program optimizes the athlete's body so it has the best chance of learning and applying the skills training. This program gives you the tools to recognize areas of restriction and then tools to address those areas. We call this preparation and maintenance. We prepare the body for training by addressing the soft tissue restrictions. These represent themselves as painful, sore, and/or tight areas. Keep in mind, soreness always equals weakness. By doing this, we clear the pathways of communication between the nervous system and the muscles, tendons, and ligaments so they can have the best chance of successfully learning and reinforcing their skills training. In the presence of restrictions, the instructions sent from the nervous system do not get completely communicated. Think of a bad cellular phone connection, and in some cases, an outright dropped call. The phases of the C.A.T.S program that you are learning are highlighted in yellow: preparation and maintenance and resistance stability. Here's how it works. You use foam rollers to address the soft tissue restrictions through myofascial release. Then you stretch what you foam rolled. The stretching is followed by stability, isometric contractions in certain positions to help reinforce coordinated, balanced movement patterns. This is performed during or as a replacement for the warm-up. The next phase, resistance stability, is where we actually strengthen and increase our ability to stabilize. The athletes will train in each of the resistance phases, stability, strength, and power, for a minimum of 4 weeks. The age, development, and level of control in each phase will determine when they progress to the next phase, such as resistance strength. I have seen level 4 through 6 gymnasts who stayed in the preparation and maintenance phase for nearly a year because they could not demonstrate the mental or physical control over their flexibility and stability positions. Not right or wrong, just appropriate for these particular athletes as individuals. But once they got it, everything changed. They took ownership and responsibility for their personal athletic development by paying attention to the details of their individual movement. Their bodies and minds quieted down as they gained greater levels of stability and control. They could feel the impact this had on their landings, agility, flexibility, and their ability to accelerate and decelerate. A year later, and this group of athletes now has the control and perspective to guide themselves through their own preparation and maintenance. This is so cool. Every practice, their coach has a different team member lead everyone through the C.A.T.S preparation and maintenance. That is an athlete. The life skills being developed here are awesome: ownership, responsibility, self-confidence, and leadership. The thing has no power. The athlete does and needs to be shown that they are the driver that uses the exercises to guide their development. Are these athletes going to become Olympic gymnasts? Reality check. They either have that genetic capacity or they don't, and no type of training or coaching will change that. When genetic potential meets great coaching, champions are produced. For all the rest, which make up the majority, athletic development is as much about developing physically as it is emotionally and mentally. Remember, the magic, the power, is in the specificity of the execution, not the exercises themselves. This model is designed for year-round training. Note that the foundation of the C.A.T.S model is one of stability. Moving clockwise, we enter the strength phase, which is built on stability, and power, which is built on strength. Without a properly developed base of stability, supported by preparation and maintenance, your athletes cannot hope to fully develop strength, power, balance, or speed. I'm sure you remember this slide. The wise blind men from Indostan who wanted to understand what the nature of an elephant was for themselves. The one who grabbed the trunk said the elephant was like a large snake. The one holding the tail said, no, it is like a rope. The one feeling the legs said, no, it is like the trunk of a tree. And on each one of them went. From each of their limited perspectives, they only understood a part of what makes up an elephant, but they lacked a true understanding of what was really in front of them. I had always liked this poem that this picture represents and thought of it while standing next to three very good coaches as we observed their athletes, and asked myself, why don't they see what I see? I saw a room full of awkward, inefficient movement patterns, and the coaches pulled out the usual verbal guidance tool from their toolbox, which of course did little to correct anything. The first place you look when you give instruction is the face. Does the athlete recognize and understand what you are saying to them? And most importantly, why? This immediately translates to the body. If the athlete understands, then they approach the movement again with physical confidence and energy. If they don't quite get it or understand what the purpose is, then their bodily approach is one of quiet, soft energy. The look, when one lacks confidence, is unmistakable when you know what to look for. Look at the face and then the body. It's quite clear. Bring your athletes into the process. Explain to them that the way they control this lunge, dip, pull-up, candlestick, etc. directly supports their ability to control the movement of their gymnastic skills. Basically, you're looking for symmetry. Does one foot, knee, or hip turn out or rotate more than the other? Does the spine or torso twist left or right? Are the shoulders level? Is one shoulder internally or externally rotated? Is there a consistent pattern that does not respond to verbal guidance? This is the time that you must recognize that there is a restriction preventing the athlete from doing so. At that point, you pull out your worksheets, look up what body part you observed, what the restriction most likely is, and follow the protocol. For instance, you observe that your athlete consistently twists to the right on high bar while transitioning to the prep for dismount. You verbally guide him to stop twisting because it is preventing him from getting into the proper position. You need to take that athlete and put him through the C.A.T.S assessment and look for some type of deviation or rotation to the right side. This could be the head, neck, shoulders, torso, spine, or hips and pelvis. In nearly every case, you will find that restriction expressed at some point during the assessment. Then, simply follow the assessment protocol to address that restriction and carry on. You have now begun the process towards restorative, balanced function, which will start to represent itself in a skills execution. Well, I think I've driven this home enough. If you simply think that the C.A.T.S program is an automatic process, your success will be very limited. If you keep in mind the guiding principles, you and your athletes will have great success. Okay, say it with me. The thing has no power should always be forefront in your mind, because there is the risk of doing just that at every step of the training process. Everything you read, every suggestion or idea, every presentation you attend, including using the C.A.T.S program, is an opportunity and a need for you to exercise this axiom. Every move we make reinforces a good habit or a bad one. Not my rule, that is just how the nervous system is designed. Cause and effect. On a cellular level, your muscles, tendons, and ligaments are filled with receptors, the function of which is quite singular, dispassionate, and indifferent. They receive, respond, and adapt to stimulation. If you walk with a limp, every system in your body will reflexively adapt or specifically maladapt to that condition. Your goals are irrelevant to this process. The way you sit, sleep, stand, walk, run, eat, etc., as well as perform gymnastic skills are all governed by this rule. Therefore, if you do not have the perspective to see what restrictions need to be addressed in your athletes, then every improperly repeated movement during practice only serves to reinforce that restriction. And because the body is governed by physical laws, biomechanics, energy, etc., this only makes it easier to move improperly the next time, and therefore that much harder to change. Regarding athletic development, we most often only think in terms of building up an athlete. Just as regarding speed development, most only think in terms of acceleration and first step response. It's easy to neglect or just flat out not understand that just as deceleration is necessary to the other half of the acceleration equation, removing restrictions within an athlete is the necessary other half to athletic development or building up equation. These restrictions are not only physical, but can also be mental and emotional. So, the answer is simple: prepare and maintain. This chart illustrates the role of specificity and execution. At the top, in yellow, we have the goal that you are trying to get your athletes to. But to achieve this, we have to go down to the bottom yellow box, to the training that supports that goal and skill development. Since the body adapts to whatever we do, our nervous system will respond to our skills development training in one of two ways. If the training and execution is specific, meaning restrictions are addressed and a proper base of stability is established to build strength and power on, then proper movement patterns will be reinforced, reinforcing a continuing cycle of proper adaptations, and finally the desired goal or skill is achieved. Conversely, if the training and execution is not specific, for instance, running drills based on time or fatigue rather than execution, mechanics, speed, etc., then improper movement patterns will be reinforced, reinforcing a continuing cycle of improper adaptations, leading to poor skills development and goals not achieved in line with expectations. When this happens, one thing is for sure: the causes have been created for future injuries, weakness, and imbalance. I hope it is clear by now that there is no holy grail of exercise. The magic exercise that turns your athletes into super fast, powerful, coordinated phenoms is the stuff that infomercials, fitness magazines, and internet blogs are made of. There is no more a best exercise than there is a best race car, running shoes, etc. The only intelligent responses to these questions are for what and whom. Questions that are asking for qualification. A field full of professional race car drivers are all using different engines, tires, spark plugs, oil, suspension systems, etc. All equally competitive depending on how they are put together and applied by the athlete, the driver. It only takes me a few seconds of observation to conclude whether a coach or trainer actually understands this. Recently, I observed a gymnastics boys team coach have his athletes jumping up and down off a pommel horse, presumably an attempt to train using plyometrics, because plyometrics are for power, right? So, if you perform special power exercises like plyometrics, you will now gain the much sought-after power. 2 problems. Number 1, inappropriate application for the capacities of these athletes. And number 2, no specificity in terms of how many, what speed or tempo, etc. Only 1 of the 5 athletes could jump high enough to actually land on top of the horse with acceptable form. The rest had to compensate in a huge way. Since their vertical jump was not high enough, the only way they could get their feet on top was to keep flexing and tucking their hips and knees up into their chests. Well, the structure of the pelvis allows so much flexion or tucking before the femur runs into the pelvis. So the only way the body can keep moving the knees up to get the feet underneath them is to externally rotate the hips by splaying the knees out very wide. Now, because there is so much stored energy, like a tightly coiled spring, in this tucked, knee-splayed position while jumping, as soon as the athlete's feet land on top of the horse, not straight but at a cockeyed angle, Newton's laws of motion fully engage, and the athlete uncontrollably comes flying off back down towards the floor, quite unbalanced and out of control. The only response from this coach is that they are not jumping fast enough off the floor. What a mess. This same coach, while I'm presenting the C.A.T.S program during an all-coaches meeting, tells me that he has been doing stability and core training for years. Knowing that he doesn't have a clue regarding stability, core, strength, power, flexibility, and the rest, I respond by saying, I know, all coaches and trainers think that they do core and stability training, but the majority don't. I share my observations of his athletes on the pommel horse, among other exercises, and say that there is nothing unique about the height or construction of a pommel horse that makes it appropriate or inappropriate for plyometrics. What makes it inappropriate in this instance is that the application lacks specificity and your athletes flat out could not execute proper form because they simply could not jump that high. I'll say it again, the thing has no power. So, pick whatever exercises you like, coaches. Since it's not the exercise that is most important, but how it is executed, it's hard to go wrong. Next, instruct your athletes in how to perform those exercises for the resistance stability phase. Frequency, how often per week. Intensity, how much resistance and rest. Duration, how much time per session. Tempo, how fast, at what cadence is each contraction performed. And volume, a cumulative weekly total that is the result of the frequency, intensity, and duration. Make your exercise selection. Determine what training phase you are in, stability, strength, or power. To begin with, everyone starts with stability. Remember, stability supports everything, and I mean everything else. Your training phase dictates the frequency, intensity, duration, tempo, and volume. Once this is completed, all you have to do is watch your athlete's execution for symmetry, control, and keeping with the proper tempo. I think I've said enough about this, so let's turn our attention to what supports our competitive athletic training systems and why it works. The goal of training a body is, and should be, to affect the nervous system. Why? Because the nervous system is the body's communication center, and as such, every bodily movement is conducted by the nervous system. Okay, you have no idea how few good images there are of puppets, puppeteers, or marionettes on the internet. Political humor aside, this is a great metaphorical representation of the nervous system. I refer to it as the puppet master, because the nervous system controls our strings, the muscles, tendons, and ligaments that control all movement. You want strength, flexibility, stability, power, etc., then it's the nervous system you need to affect. Understanding how the nervous system works is integral to understanding how to properly develop the body. The puppet master, or nervous system, sends messages to instruct the body to move. How well those instructions are received will determine the quality of the movement. This is why addressing the athlete's areas of restriction through preparation and maintenance are so important. Remember, the puppet master's strings represent the pathways that the nervous system uses to communicate its instructions to the body. If there are restrictions along the strings or pathways, then the instructions will not be fully communicated. Think static during a cellular call. Stay with me now, it gets a little tricky here. Remember the second guiding principle, every move we make reinforces a good habit or a bad one? The reason for this is because the nervous system communicates its messages through electrochemical impulses. That's right, we run on electricity. Remember when I said the C.A.T.S program provides you with a rock-solid foundation for you to sift through and test all of the fitness and exercise-related information you come across? Because it is grounded in unshakable, provable, repeatable physical laws? Well, the nervous system is also guided by these laws and principles. Since the nervous system communicates its instructions through electricity, what is the governable law that electricity is bound by? Here's a hint. Electricity always takes the path of, that's right, least resistance. What this means for the body is that it will always, by reflex, take the easiest path possible. Since it is harder for the nervous system to communicate its instructions through a point of restriction, it will reflexively and immediately reroute its communications through another easier pathway. When this happens, we call this phenomenon compensation. The body has compensated by substituting your intended movement with a lesser quality one. Stay with me now. The problem with this process is twofold. First, repeated compensations are what cause imbalances. Second, the odds of your body compensating the next time you give it the same instructions greatly increases. This happens because the part of the body that receives the instructions from the nervous system has put up the least resistance to receiving those instructions. Did everyone catch that? If the nervous system is governed by the path of least resistance, then the path that the nervous system uses must be the one that puts up the least resistance. As a point of logic and physiology, there can be no other answer. Because of our second guiding principle, every move we make reinforces a good habit or a bad one, our bodies reflexively and immediately adapt by making that pathway easier to access the next time. This in turn makes it more challenging to establish proper movement, because this has now become the path of greater resistance. This is the basic design of humans: stimulation, response, adaptation. Every time a pathway is communicated through, it puts up less resistance and makes it the preferred path to use the next time. Stop. Check your minds and think about this in context of every poorly executed move you see your athletes perform. If you do not remove those restrictions and train the athlete first for stability, then for strength, and then for power, you will not be able to train the body to create the paths of least resistance necessary to support the athlete's individual maximum level of skills development for their sport. Check your minds again. If your reflex is to think, but that's what we do conditioning for, to make the body stronger, to help perform the skills, remember the first guiding principle: the thing has no power. That may be your intention during conditioning, but if you do not qualify the execution of the conditioning exercises, that is not what will happen. Remember, on the cellular level, your body is completely indifferent to your goals, wants, needs, etc. It just responds to stimulation. Stimulate it wrong, and that is what will be reinforced. period. That you can count on. The remaining slides that are all text are for instruction of how to specifically apply the preparation and maintenance and resistance stability phases of the C.A.T.S model. The remaining slides are picture slides that provide you with a representative visual sampling of the foam roller, stretching, stability, and assessment positions. For the assessment slides, some positions show correct form and some show incorrect form. This is where you take out your assessment forms and practice to gain a frame of reference before you actually test your athletes. Consult the pictures often to help reinforce your understanding of how to guide your athletes. You now have all the tools you need for a rock-solid foundation which can support all your athletic development needs. If you just apply this part of the C.A.T.S model, you will be doing a great deal towards the development of our youth to build strong, healthy bodies for life. For those of you who want to do more, come back to this website to continue your education in athletic development of ages 6 through 18. The end of October will mark our new C.A.T.S online video library. This will take you through a video education and instruction process where you will learn by watching every phase of this training system with real athletes and coaches. Our new website will also be an environment where coaches and athletes can interact, pool knowledge, pose and answer questions, and join discussion groups. One of the ways this site will distinguish itself as a resource to you is that it will be driven by applied knowledge rather than information, what we actually know, as it is rooted in science, logic, and application. Please contact me with any questions or thoughts. Yours in health, Christopher Weiler.